Wake up in the morning, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. I want to move closer, but I don't control it. I know I've been trying, the doors and open. I know it sound funny, but really though, in the beginning we really close. Now we just cruising up on the coast. Don't want to lose you, I really don't. My God, I'm working so hard. I let my guards down and I'm feeling so far. You won't cut me off and I'm ready to grow and I'm ready to know you more. Please, I honestly say I'm mature. It ain't my decision, it's yours. But I will persuade with my all, cause I'm ready to run to your arms. I just want you to know that I wanna go to a place where I find you, a place I call home, a place where I'm not alone. And maybe I'll grow just a little bit more, and I'll be adored, then I'll be adored, then I'll be adored, then I'll be adored, then I'll be adored. I go back and forth when I feel your presence. I'm above the world, there isn't much better, but then I fall levels and levels below it. Don't know where I'm going, don't know where I'm holding. I say I gave up, but I know I didn't. It's just my frustration, I'm only human. I act like I know what I'm really doing, as long as it's you that I'm really choosing. I will never give up, no, I wanna do it your way. You're the king of the world, only wanna do what you say. I know that it's possible to give back my heart to you, do it that you choose. I just want you to know that I wanna go to a place where I find you, a place I call home, a place where I'm not alone. And maybe I'll grow just a little bit more, and I'll be adored, then I'll be adored, then I'll be adored, then I'll be adored, then I'll be adored. I know that you love me, I really do. Just wanna do right by you till it's through. Please don't ignore me, please just adore me. Wanna be closer to you, I just wanna make you happy.
Now, from the MITM Business Consultants comes Man in the Middle, your one-stop shop for financial tips and tricks that big banks and corporate America won't teach you and don't want you to know. Discussing the latest and greatest products, services, skills, and habits to grow and support the financial needs of your business and you. Giving you the knowledge to help make your own important choices for your business and you. Disclaimer: Man in the Middle expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, reliance on, or inability to use this podcast or the information presented in this podcast. Now, here is your Man in the Middle, with 10 years of experience in the financial and banking industry, Art Abrahamian.
What is going on, everybody? Episode 26, Man in the Middle. Today, we're talking about when is the right time. Here with my co-host, Kendall. What's going on, Kendall?
What is going on, Art? We are here, and I'm here with the Man in the Middle. It's your homie, your brother, K. Doze, better known as Kendall. Happy to bring this show to you guys today. I'm really excited, man. We got a lot to talk about. When is the right time, business owners? When is the right time? And I'm going to be grilling Art once again about when it comes to business, from any aspect, from any perspective, any situation, when is the right time?
Before we get going, we want to thank our sponsors, USCCA. If you want to know more about USCCA, click that link below. And before we get started, we'll go ahead and play their video, and we'll go from there.
It's in our nature to protect the ones we love, to stand up to any danger, to be strong and courageous, to always be prepared, to keep our family safe. To be the first line of defense. We are born to protect.
Thank you, USCCA. Before we get started, Kendall, how was your weekend, brother?
Man, it was pretty good. Got a lot of work done. Hung out with the kids. But I know from what we talked about earlier, you had a pretty good weekend. I want to talk about your weekend, brother.
So actually, my weekend was really interesting. I went to a police auction, and I was able to get a killer deal on baby oil, about 1,000 bottles, pennies on the dollar.
Did you get the Diddy special?
Yeah, they didn't tell me what it came from, but I knew where I got all. So we are now in the business of selling baby oil at wholesale. So DM us to get a good deal on it. We can't guarantee where it came from, but
with every membership, you get a bottle of baby.
We got all our tech issues situated, and I'm so frustrated because last week, man, what a great podcast, and audio was all messed up. So if you're here, you're watching right now, let us know. Is audio doing everything it's supposed to be doing? No double echo. We had a bunch of hot mics. But let's get into it, man. Let's talk about, is it the right time?
All right. So, Art, I got some questions for you, right? So, hopefully we have a lot of business owners, out there watching this stream, listening to this stream today. And there's a lot of people who are just starting businesses right now. I've been in that boat before and plan to be there again. So I'm excited that I get to do this and ask you these questions. And you guys watching at home, whether if you're driving your trucks, I don't know what you're doing right now, but you're about to get some game right now from the man in the middle himself. So I hope you're ready. Get your notebooks out, because you might not get this again, because you got to pay for it next time. So you might as well gear up and get ready. So my first question, Art, as a business owner with any business that I'm starting, when will I know, when is the right time to start looking to hire people?
Sure. That's a great question, and you'd be surprised how often we get asked that question. It's almost every time, right? If we're not being asked that question, we're effectively pushing the question towards the client of like, hey, how long are you going to do this where you're stressed out in your day-to-day operations, where you're no longer able to do what you need to do because you're so caught up in everything that you're doing that you can't even provide additional service to the community. Typically speaking, we always say it works like this, right? It's time to hire an employee when you've reached a plateau. There's a ceiling that gets hit when you do everything on your own. It's this ceiling, and you feel it. You know when you've hit it, because the moment that you're no longer able to take on bigger clients, bigger projects that would pay for what 20 clients worth of work that you're doing because you don't have the time, right? That's the ceiling in which it goes, okay, the business owner is the most pivotal part of his business, right? He's the main salesman, especially in a small team where you're talking he's the only person, he's looking to board one more. He's the main salesman, right? It's the same reason like I early on in the start of this business started hiring people, right? To do scheduling, to do bookkeeping, to do things, along that. Because a lot of those things I can do. But if I'm being tied up doing those things and not overseeing those things, then I lose now the opportunity to grow the business. And the question then becomes, do I want to keep the business where it's at? Or do I want to grow it? Because some people are totally fine, like we discussed in last week's topic, where some people are okay just saying, you know what, I tried it, it's not for me. I had an employee, and I don't like the responsibility. I'd rather just worry about myself, go to work, come home. Other people are like, I don't want to work all day. I'd rather facilitate these tasks to somebody else. And that's really just called task delegation. Every person who's ever worked a management position knows, they've heard it, delegate. There's
Absolutely.
Yeah, but there's managers who overdo that, right? There's people who delegate their entire job. It's Like, that's not what you're supposed to do, bud. You're supposed to do your job, delegate
Right.
small ancillary tasks to, whoever you can on the team. So there's a certain ceiling that when you feel it, and it's either you are no longer able to provide any more additional support to the community in way of getting new clients because you're just up to here, you're up to there in business, and you just can't handle it, or it's time to shift focuses. Like, the most common time is we always tell clients on the consumer side of things versus the commercial side. Like, if pest control is a great example. And in pest control, it's like, okay, if you're going to go from house to house, right, and there's like 50 houses, okay, well, nothing's really changing. You're going to go to those same houses. You're going to do everything you need to do, and that's great. Oh, we just switch camera angles, and everybody say hi to Judo. Hi, Sophia. She's like, Dad, too many podcasts without a toy on the show, so now we brought that back. But essentially, what's going to happen, and this is one that just recently came up with one of our clients who's in pest control, where it's like, yeah, you have 200 clients that you're doing pest control for. You're going to continue to do pest control for these people, but you're missing out on a bunch of commercial contracts with the city, with the county, with the jails, with this, with that. And he's like, I don't have the time for it. Congratulations. You just hit that threshold. Now it's your decision. Are you trying to grow this business, or are you trying to keep it where it's at? And that's a question you have to ask yourself. Is this where it stops, or is this where I push through that plateau and start handing help? So the best way to answer this question is it's like what they say, when you know, because you then have to make choices that you normally didn't have to make. Do I want to, I want this job, but I can't take this job. That's a choice. That means it's time. That means you no longer have time because you don't have choices anymore.
That's a great answer. I mean, I can totally understand that. And that can also just coincide with life, right? Like when someone needs to make certain changes in life, but now you have to make that decision to make that change.
Yeah, and I say that about financial freedom too. Somebody asked me one time, like, when do you know you have financial freedom? And I'm like, when you have choices. When you can decide whether or not you want to do something, Like, you have financial freedom the moment that you have that choice. Do I want to work today, or do I want to go to Disneyland? That's financial freedom. And until you don't have that choice, you don't have financial freedom.
Wow, man. So I hope you business owners out there are paying attention to that, especially those who are just getting started. Maybe you've been in business for a couple years, and you're at that point where it's like, wow, I don't have time to do certain things that I either want to do or that I need to do. It may be time for you to hire some employees. All right. So another question.
Yeah.
I have for you, Mr. Art, the man in the middle. So after said business owner has hired their first 2 employees, what would you consult that business owner on what they should be looking for in an employee?
In an employee? Well, it depends the task that they're being given, right? So, like, if you're hiring a manager, then you need to find somebody who's not good at sales. See, that's the problem. Like, there's this cross-contamination that happens in business where it's like, well, I want to hire a manager who can keep track of the schedule, but I want him to be a salesman, and I want him to be a clerk, and I want him to be the guy who throws out the trash. It's like, you can't do that, because you're going to find somebody who's okay at 5 different things, but not somebody who's great at one specific thing. So the question then becomes, well, are you trying to hire a manager, or are you just trying to hire an octopus who's got 8 arms and can do 8 things at once, right? It's the same thing. It's like, no, if you're hiring a manager, then what are the managerial qualities you're looking for? Knows how to motivate and direct a team, knows how to direct clients and sources of revenue where they need to be, knows how to stay on top of schedules, knows how to stay on top of the employees, and not in like a toxic way, just in a way where it's like, hey, they're late, this is the schedule, because there's a lot of like back end stuff in a business. Businesses can't just run willy-nilly. They have to have structure, and that's where the management team comes in. Okay, now we're talking about a sales department. Do we really care if somebody in sales is good at managing a team and scheduling, unless they're a team leader, right? But if we're talking sales, I need the guy that or I need the person. It doesn't have to be the guy. It's just the person. I need the person who can talk the talk, walk the walk, understands the principle of sales, understands the value in the product that they're selling, and is not afraid to talk to people. And if I start commingling between those two traits, I'm not going to get a good employee for what I'm looking for.
Here's another question for you to piggyback off of what you just said. Do salespeople make good managers?
I think it depends. I think a salesperson can make a good team leader, but do they make a good manager? It depends on the person. But that's the thing is, if I have a salesman and I bring him from sales to management, I don't need him to do sales anymore. I need him to do management because he's going to be tied up with managerial things versus sales tasks. But then again, the question, unfortunately, there's this thing called being too good at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're too good of a salesman, then you become irreplaceable, right?
Right.
So it's harder to take your best salesman and put him in management because he's your best salesman. So it sucks, from the employee side, being too good at what you do can be a negative aspect too. Now, if you have a boss that appreciates it and compensates it accordingly, where you're doing things so well, and it's like, look, you're not a manager, you're a team leader, and you're making manager money, but I still need you on that sales floor because you better suited in sales than you are in management.
And okay, let's stop being modest here. Art is kick-ass salesman, right? Like he sells me all the time, and
baby oil specifically lately,
especially baby oil. It's amazing. You should see the whole layout. No, I'm kidding. I'm really kidding. But you're someone who comes from not only a sales background, but a background in which you dominated.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, and do you think that business owners will look at someone like yourself back then and say, okay, maybe I need him in sales, but I wonder if he can duplicate himself?
Sure. And, I tended to be the guy that would train because I was great at sales and just great with people, but it was a simple fact of I also like to teach. And I say it all the time that when the day comes and I hang up the hat for me working here and I pass it over to the next generation of, MITM, which is the kids who will eventually take over, I want to teach. So I've always been in a teaching place where it's like I can sell, but I can teach you how to sell too. And that's where I separated myself. I didn't want to be so good at sales that I became invisible everywhere else. I honed my skills to be good at everything, and I use that. A lot of people who know me will tell you I know a lot about everything, not just one thing. We get text all the time, we get comments all the time where it's like he knows a little bit about almost everything. And then I go, okay, well, I don't want to know a little bit. I want to know more about everything. So I make it a point to separate myself. So it depends. What are your goals, right? Like, I think as a business owner, as an employee, as a person, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to be the best salesman you can be? Then you focus on that. Are you trying to be the best business owner you can be? Then you need to verse yourself in everything business. You need to learn the basics. You need to learn the advanced techniques. You need to learn understanding complicated topics and knowing when the time is right and having a resource at your disposal for being able to talk to somebody and say, hey, I need help with this, this, and this. Does that person have it? You have to ask yourself, what is it you're trying to accomplish? If you're trying to be the best salesman, then just be the best salesman you can be. And you'll live off of those commissions and residuals. It's the same concept of like realtors. Realtors' goal is to be the best realtor they can be. Their job isn't to be the best broker, because their job's not to be the best lender. Their job's not to be the best underwriter. Their job is to be the best salesman. But on the other side of that coin, the loan underwriters who are doing real estate loans, they're not trying to be salesmen. They don't even sell. You show up to their desk and go, here's a packet. What do they have to do? They have to make sure this packet passes.
It's so, to me, it's so amazing how simple it can really be.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how complicated it is.
Yeah, no, it's different. It's it can be complicated, it can be simple. It depends on a lot of things. Your level of expertise, your level of comprehension, your level of resources. I mean, it's like anything else. We're conditioned to think a certain way. That's just how it is. As people, between social media, between TV, between, the social norms, as we say, we're conditioned to think a certain way. Most people don't even know that, like, when we get hired to go into stores and change up the way the stores look, that there's a lot of psychological aspects that you need to understand. Like, most people don't know this, but stores tend to, the immediate thing that when you walk in is you turn right. It's just a psychological thing that we've been prone to do, which is when you walk into most grocery stores, when you walk in, what's usually on the right side, right? When you walk in, the stuff that's on sale, the stuff that has to go, flowers, those things, because you're not there for them, but because you're conditioned to walk in and walk right, we're going to put all those things. Even things like loss leaders, right, in grocery stores. That's another thing where it's like we have an item that we don't make money on, and that's what we bring you in with. Costco's notorious for this with their hot dogs and their chicken. $2 hot dog and a soda. Nobody ever goes there for just a hot dog and a soda. Nobody ever just walks in there for just a chicken. And if you do, it's like, was that really worth it? Was the 30 minutes you spent for the $5 chicken and the 20 minutes drive there and back? You know what I mean? It's like at that point now you're weighing pros and cons and how bad you want a $6 chicken versus just doing something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's psychological things like that and understanding that a lot of what we do as consumers, it's just we're programmed to do those things. And major corporations who drop billions and billions of dollars into those departments know that. And, I had a restaurant owner say, I need to start coming out with new products, but I don't know what to do. And maybe I should just pay for advertising. And I go, dude, you don't need to do research and development. There are these companies, kind of McDonald's, these billion-dollar organizations that are dropping millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising. Just follow the trend. They're spending the money on your behalf. If chicken sandwiches are the hot topic right now, you make the best damn chicken sandwich you can. If Instagram-worthy food is where it's at, these shakes with, like, you've seen them, with all the donuts and everything on top, or the alcohol where they, like, put burgers on top and cover them in cheese. Just follow the path, man. You have the luxury of having big corporate America pay and pave the way for you to just go, okay, their product is marketed to no avail. However, their product quality is terrible. It's just bad quality food because it's all done at wholesale. Right. So you got the benefit of the advertising. People are already crazy about it because that's all they're seeing on their TikTok feed, their YouTube shorts, the algorithm that gets provided and just regurgitated to them. And all you have to do is just make a better product. But you already know what product's good. Just follow the trend. And that's, sometimes it's that simple. It's about understanding, like, how to use the psychology to your benefit.
Man, that's amazing. That's some amazing information. So let's go back to kind of, the hiring of the employees, right? So the business owner has hired their employees already. So now, while they've hired the employee, when is a good time for them to say, okay, I now want to give one of these employees like a promotion?
Yeah.
What should they be looking for? I'm gonna go back to, I have another question, but I'm gonna go back to that later. Go ahead and answer that question.
Sure. So typically speaking, like a 2.3, well, it used to be annual inflation was at a steady rate of 2.3. Without getting too political, it's exceeded that in the last few years, where the inflation rate is just skyrocketed to the insane amounts, where 2.3% just doesn't quite cut it. But as a small business owner, you can't afford to pay somebody $50 an hour for a market standard of $20 an hour, right? So how do you justify raises? Well, time, for instance, because it's kind of like a time in, cash out. Is the best way to look at it. Somebody puts time in, they should be getting cash out. Now, there's a new trend of like, I did this one thing and I didn't get compensated for it. And it's like, there's a level of like, I don't even know how to explain it. There's just this level in today's employees, because the younger generation of people just have this expectation of like, oh, well, everything I do should be compensated. But it's ridiculous, because it's an equivalent of, I made a burger, or if I flip burgers for a living, then I should get a cut of every burger sold. You know,
Right.
where it's like, yeah, in a perfect world, without overhead expenditure and taxes and insurances and compensations and payroll this and payroll that and insurance, sure, like in a perfect world, that would make sense. But you have to understand that the point in which you want to raise is after time. Typically, like, I think every year an annual review should be done of an employee, and a small raise should be, you know, included with that. But you don't want to set the expectation either. See, it's a double-edged sword, because if you start going big, like if you give somebody a $5 raise just right out of the gate, then when you give them a $1 raise, they're like, I don't understand. Last time I got a $5 raise.
Right.
Right? Because most people, when it comes to employees, they don't care that the business owner might be struggling. They don't care that there's overhead expenditure. They only really care about themselves. And it's not that they have to care. I mean, you hear me say it all the time that nobody's going to care about your business like you do. But nobody's going to care about you and your business the way you have to care about you and your business. And that includes your employees. As far as they're concerned, they should be paid $50 an hour for what they do, even though it's only worth $20 an hour. And it's about finding the right people to hire, right? You know when you meet someone, if they're down to earth and if they see value in working for you. And in startups especially, where it's like, I can't afford to pay you right now, but if you're willing to ride the wave with me, like, it'll work out for you. You know, there's a lot of that too, where it's like at that person, and at that point, that person has to decide, do I trust this person enough to ride that wave? And have they given me any reason not to trust them? Right? Because it's on the person too. There are plenty of people out there who say, oh, if you do this for me, I promise, you know, there's a pot of gold at the end of this rainbow. But it's like, I haven't seen a rainbow. Right. There's no rainbow. So I guess the raise thing is just see what that person's doing. If that employee comes to work and he's nothing but a problem and he's never putting in additional effort, well, then why are we going to compensate him additionally for what he's doing when what he's doing isn't even up to par standard? You know, I had a friend who had a company, and the company didn't last more than 6 months. I've talked about this person a few times over the course of the few years in this podcast. But one of the questions I asked him, because he was buying, I mean, they were bleeding money, right? Bleeding money. That's why the business didn't last, because he was spending money in frivolous places that had no business being spent. But one of the things that I remember I had a conversation with him was, why are you spending so much money in meals? Oh, because I want my staff to know that I appreciate them. But you're firing people like every 2 weeks and getting new staff. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. So what about your top salesmen? He's like, yeah, they're there. They're still there. Okay. So what do they get? What do you mean? Everybody gets lunch. So you're telling me the top guys aren't being given anything over the starters, and you think that's okay, right? And he goes, I don't understand. I said, well, here's how you want to do it, right? If I have a team and my team's full of great salesmen, then my top salesmen are going to get the free lunch every week. And the people who are not meeting their metrics are going to be like, man, this sucks. I have to keep paying for lunch, and Jimmy over there doesn't. Well, maybe if I start working harder, I have a goal to attribute to, right? And you were in banking, I was in banking. You remember how our sales goals used to be, where it was like you'd go on cruises, you'd go on this, you get crazy comps, crazy cruises. Right. Like, great. That was what our driving factor was. I want to go on vacation this year. I'm going to sell my ass off. But if we're not even differentiating between our highest and our lowest, now our lowest are like, this job's great, I'm getting all the benefits. And our highest are like, I'm not being appreciated for what I'm doing. I'm the best salesman in this place and everybody's getting to eat lunch. You know what I mean? There's a sense of ego too. You have to sense that sales, especially in salespeople, ego is a big thing. Salesmen have egos, and that's a good thing, right? It's just when it becomes like overwhelming. Like when your ego becomes toxic, but it's good to have an ego. You need to have an ego in salesman because if you don't walk around feeling like you can't sell ice to an Eskimo, you're not going to sell that product. So now we have guys with egos who are killing it in sales and they're not being appreciated for it. And they can say, you know what? I could go anywhere with my talent, take my talents down to South Beach.
Right. Man, that's great. That's awesome because I'm sitting here and I'm hearing this as a person that's been in sales before, and I know the feeling of, okay, I'm hitting on all cylinders, I'm doing well, and I'm one of the best in my branch, and not getting anything for it.
Right.
But a cool email.
Yeah, I don't want your email. Buy me lunch.
Yeah. I might go to Olive Garden with the whole team.
Yeah.
It's almost like in sports. I gotta take everything to sports. It's almost like in sports where if you're the best player on the team, right? And I'm sorry, I played sports all my life. I don't think the best players should get treated like everybody else.
No.
Especially if that guy works the hardest. He's there in the morning before everyone gets there working out, and he's the last one to leave. No, that guy should get certain privileges because of that, and it shows during the game, just like the salesperson. And I know this, too, about the salesperson, and I know you can attest to this. The best salespeople usually know the most about that business.
Yeah, of course, because they have to know their product to sell their product. We talk about that all the time. You can't sell something you don't know. And if you're selling something you don't know, you shouldn't be selling it because you're not selling what somebody might need. You're selling what you're told to sell. You remember the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air before he became a psychopath and married G.I. Jane?
Keep my wife. No,
keep her name out your mouth. Anyways, before that debacle, there was a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode where Will Smith is on the basketball team at the prep school, and everybody's like, pass it to Will. And Carlton's with his ego, right? Because he grew up in money and he just wants to be appreciated, but he's terrible at basketball. Well, why are we passing the ball to Will? Coach, I was open. And the coach looks at him and goes, when you can shoot like Will, you'll get the ball. And what happens? His ego gets the best of him at the last of that episode, right? Because Will's right open, and Carlton goes, this is my chance. It's the game-winning shot. I'm going to make it, and breaks. Breaks bad. And everybody just looks at him, and I'll never forget, Will just looks at him and goes, you want to give him that Chris Rock slap.
Mm-hmm.
But
he wanted to go up there.
Yeah, exactly.
He followed through with that thing, too,
he
didn't he?
That was great. Wow. But it's one of those things where it's like that ego, that episode's in a testament where the best salesman should have got that ball. He would have won that game. But the other salesman, a.k.a. the other basketball player, the other sports person, had an ego to him. And I'm the best, but I don't show that I'm the best. And thanks, Dylan. What the comment says, I love this art guy and such a handsome fella, too. All right, man. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you. But, it just goes to show where it's like, you have to understand what's around you. As a coach, you should look and go, your ego got the best of you. We lost this game because your ego took over, because you don't have enough humility to understand that's the best salesman in the room. That's the best basketball player in the room. And it's one of those things where you have to accept that. We talk about having humility all the time. It is the most, if you want to be a good professional, if you want to be a good business owner, if you want to be a great person, have humility. Understand where your strengths and where your weaknesses are. And if I am just overly proud and I'm overly confident, and sometimes that's going to put you in a position that when the game-winning shot needs to be done, you're going to break. Because instead of reaching out to somebody who can actually do it, you think, well, I can do it too. I just need people to believe. And having people believe in you is a very good motivator, but sometimes your motivation and your ability are not up to par.
Man, that's amazing. So, next question, Art. So, we talked about, when is the best time to hire? When is the best time to promote? When is the best time to fire?
Yeah,
an employee.
That's a hard question. The best time to fire is when you've noticed that somebody's checked out. And if you've given someone multiple chances to fix their wrongs and right their wrongs and they can't, even if you love that person, it's like what they say. When you love somebody, you just got to let them go. And even if you don't have that care or affection for somebody, if they're not meeting the expectation, then it's time for them to go. I am constantly guilty of being a person that gives many chances. I've always been that way in my life. I've always found that people deserve more chances. And it's a struggle. It's an internal struggle that I have because sometimes I give people chances and other people tell me, why'd you even bother? That person should be out. You know, you should never have trusted this person again. They've already proven themselves. And part of my growth and development, even to this day, is understanding that I'm trying. You know, I still want to be, I'm a person who loves people. And when I love people, I love them dearly. But when I don't like people, I don't like you. I could care less if you're suffering on the street at that point. And that's me. That's how I am. I know that about myself. So when I love hard. And when I bring somebody on my team, whoever it is, I care about that person. So there's a level of, this is the do as I say, not as I do. And I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. That emotion has to be pulled out of it.
That's the humility, though, of what you just talked about. You know what your strengths are and your weaknesses are, and you just displayed that just now.
Yeah.
I'm not kissing ass here.
No, I know.
I'm just, that's a fine demonstration of what you just spoke about when it comes to humility.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's amazing. So when it comes to firing someone, basically
take the emotion out of it. You know, it sucks because people have lives outside of the company. And when you go, oh, it's time for me to fire this person, you know that person's life is going to be affected. But your life is being affected by it too, because businesses get put into risk, get into positions where they can be severely, you know, dealt with by whatever governing agency is overseeing them because an employee is allowing for whatever is going on in their personal life to affect business. Funny fact, actually, 85% of disgruntled employees cost the business $5,000 in revenue lost every year. So each business, and that was the statistic, that every business, if you took all the businesses in the world, about 85% of them have disgruntled employees. Each of those, so if you think about, you have a team of 3, and 2 of those people are disgruntled, and it's not even something you did. They're just upset with life. They're upset with whatever situation that is going on, and it bleeds into their work. You're losing $10,000 a year. What was the comment we got? This looks like a good one.
Well, that's Dylan. Dylan says here, as an employee, I can say there is nothing worse than when a manager or owner doesn't have that humility to sit back and let the expert do their job, because they have to have their hand in it.
Yeah, and you know what, Dylan? That is so true. The boss, most bosses have that God complex, and that's part of that. It's got to go. That mentality has to go. If you're going to hire a team, you need to trust that team. And only when that team proves to you that they don't deserve your trust is when you sit on top of somebody at that point. I use micromanaging or overseeing as a form of punishment, not as a form of my operation. I trusted you. You failed my trust. It's time for me to now get involved. But if you're going to hire somebody and they haven't earned that I don't trust you, and it sounds weird to say you haven't earned the lack of trust, but if you haven't earned that from somebody, there's absolutely no reason that you have to be that involved. If you're going to hire somebody and then do all their work for them, what's the point in hiring them? What's the point? You might as well do that job. The boss shouldn't even have a salesperson. You'll be the manager and the salesman. Since you want to be so involved, then you might as well do it. Because why am I paying 2 people to do the same job at this point? Those kinds of things I don't like. For me, you know, and I think Dylan is one of many, many people who feel that way. Where we felt that way. I remember I'm sitting over here doing $50 million, $70 million accounts, $100 million accounts, and I got Joe Schmo coming in. Oh, let me tell you how to do it. You don't even know how to do the job, dude. Get out of the office. You've made this awkward. You've inserted yourself. I was doing just fine till you got here, and you totally derailed me. For what? Like, Here, let me get out of my seat. You sit down. What am I here for? You hired me to do this and you're going to do it? What's the point? So there's that level of, there are business owners who don't have trust. I just said that you got to emotionally shut down sometimes when you're talking about firing. But if you're going to hire, you have to trust the person that you're bringing in. And only when they have earned for you not to trust them, then you make the adjustment.
It reminds me of this book. I started reading it and I never finished it. It was written by what's his name? Simon Sinek.
Okay.
Start with why.
Okay.
And it's funny because we're talking about when is the best time. In that book, he's more highlighting leadership, like management.
Right.
And how management should treat their,
Employees, right.
their managers, their CFOs or whoever it may be.
Do you know why that was in that book?
Why is that?
Because employees don't leave companies. They leave managers. They do not leave the company. The company hasn't done anything to them. It's their management. Employers and employees do not leave companies. They leave managers. That's why that happens. That's why that book focuses so much on that.
Absolutely. And everything, like I said, I haven't finished the book, but when I'm a weird reader, ladies and gentlemen. When I read the book and I listen to it through Audible.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I retain the information a lot better.
Yeah.
So while reading that book, it even helped me as a father, right? Because, of course, you don't want to look at family as a business.
Sure.
But in a way, you kind of do.
It's work.
It's definitely
It is work.
It's definitely work raising kids. So I've noticed, like, wow, like using some of the things, some of the tools that he provides through that book, even the little bit that I read, it helps.
Yeah.
Because when you show an employee that you really care, like if an employee has an issue, I truly believe, just from knowing Art, talking to Art, an employee had an issue, whether if it's personal life or whatever, I believe you will really listen.
Oh, yeah.
However, this is what I also believe, too, about. I'm going to say it, okay?
Uh-oh.
I believe, and those of you, I'm going to use some colorful language right now. So just real quick, I also believe Art will call you out on your bullshit.
Shit.
Yeah, okay. I believe he will. And so, and you need that too.
No, you have to.
You need that out of a manager, boss, however you want to say it. Because sometimes, even as grown men and women, we need to be put in our place a little bit. Yeah. But also built up at the same time.
In every story we tell, we are either the victim or the hero. And some people take that too far. Some people are always the victim. Some people are always the hero. And it makes you wonder, how can you always be the hero? How can you always be the victim? And it's about finding that place where I'm neither victim nor hero. I'm just a person and I made a mistake, and that's okay. And I don't need to sit there. I think I was one of the few employees in the banking industry because it was such a toxic environment where like people would make mistakes and everybody would freak out and look for excuses. Oh my God. It just looked for excuses. I was just like, yeah, I made the mistake. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
And I got reprimanded less for the mistakes that I made than the person making the excuses. It's the same equivalent. Like you get pulled over. Do you know why I pulled you over? They didn't know why they pulled you over. They just want to hear what you have to say. I was speeding. Okay. Well, be on your way. It's the same concept. That's the mentality people have. You don't have to be the victim. You don't have to be the hero. You just have to be a person. And the person makes a mistake. And if there's any expectation that you're not allowed to make a mistake, that person's out of their mind. Just blatantly out of their mind. Because that's what being a human, being a professional is. I, to this day, will make a mistake from time to time. I don't make it all the time, but I definitely never don't make one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Of course, even the best. Picasso paints. Sometimes he messes up when he paints. Surgeons, they're not always 100% for 100%. Everybody makes a mistake. Now, there's levels to the mistakes that are being made, and there's level of care that has to be put into it. But just because you made a mistake doesn't mean you have to be the victim. Just because you did something good doesn't mean you have to be the hero. And I think that ties back to humility, but that's what it is that sometimes you can make a mistake just like you can do something really great. And if you expect the whole world to idolize you for the thing you did well, and if you expect the whole world to chastise you for the thing you did wrong, it's gonna become a toxic trait that as a business owner you're gonna obtain, as an employee you're gonna obtain, and as a person you're gonna obtain. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we wake up late. Sometimes we forget. That's okay. But it's not okay when I'm like, hey, man, what happened? And you just, it wasn't me. This person, that person. Just say, yeah, I made a mistake. Let's move on from that. Let's learn from that.
You know, I just had that conversation with my son. And it's funny, I just said earlier how this all ties into just your regular life as being a dad. Something happened in the kitchen. I said, what happened? Who did that? I didn't do it. That's not what I asked you.
Yeah, who did it?
Who did it and what happened?
Right.
So we can prevent it next time. It's just like in my other job, I teach kids about, I'm here for prevention and correction, right? Prevention and correction to prevent you from hurting yourself, hurting others.
Right.
And to correct you when you make mistakes. Right? So
right.
I can correct you so you can move forward and hopefully not make that same mistake again. So, man, I love this. So before we conclude here, Mr. Art, my last question I do have for you, and this kind of goes back to the beginning a little bit. And I'm probably always going to ask this question, Art, because I think everyone needs to know every show.
Sure.
So when a person is starting their business, right, and let's say they've hired a couple of employees, but they have not seen a consultant, when is the right time to call MITM,
sure,
business consultant, to get some guidance?
Yeah, I mean, if you're struggling, like me, myself, right, I said I struggle. I know what my weaknesses are, and I'm trying every day to work on that. And unfortunately, that's not something I can stare in the mirror and work on. So I have to reach out to somebody. I have mentors, too, that I talk to, and I ask them questions, and I get information. And although they're not my business advisor per se, there's somebody who gives me advice in the topic that I ask. Our job and what we do here is to be along the road with you every step of the way with the business. So when you come across that pivotal decision, especially if you're trying to hire or fire, we help you take the emotion out of it so that you can make a clear, concise decision. I now need to start reaching out to more people so I can make those decisions, because if I leave myself to do it, I allow emotion to allow me to let things go over when they should not. So if you're a business owner, and it doesn't matter what it is you're trying to do, whether you're trying to hire, fire, make your job as the owner easier, make sales better. I mean, we even do educational We do educational seminars for businesses all the time, where we come in there and teach them how to manage, how to teach, how to be better, everything. Every aspect of the business is only as good as its weakest link. If you've got a great management team and a great ownership team and your sales team's lacking, you're only as good as that sales team. So that's the moment where you need to understand, my sales team's lacking, I need a professional to come in. Because you've tried everything you can, and they're still not doing what you need to do. And you might not have the resources or the knowledge to pass that on. Because we talked about it in the last few podcasts, that a professional who starts a business really started that business because they're good at what they do. They know what they know, but they don't know what they don't. And that's where we come in. We provide you what you don't know, and if you have that sense of humility to accept that help, there's not a world where your business doesn't better itself. Just like as a person, if we shut ourselves out from any sort of information or allowing people to help us, how are we supposed to grow? It's the same thing for the business. It's just on a business level, it's what feeds your family. It's what creates your legacy.
Awesome, man. With that being said, people, this was episode 26, my man.
We're getting them going. So we're moving to Wednesdays now, right?
Yes, sir.
Cool. So Wednesdays instead of Tuesdays. But things are going to be going good. If I can, I'd like to plug the new podcast coming out on Fridays.
Let's do it.
That's going to be good. So just in case anybody doesn't know, we have a podcast coming on Fridays called Parents and Pennies. This one is not business related whatsoever. This is just going to be family men trying to pass on good tips, financial tricks for people who are either family oriented themselves or living on their own to just better themselves financially. You know, one of the main slogans of the podcast is, it's not about having more, it's about making the most of what you have. So that's going to be coming on Fridays around 10, 11 o'clock. We hope you guys tune in for that. And that's going to be a nice shift because it's not going to be business focused. This is going to be all you listeners out there who are business owners, or, you know, like we have Dylan in the chat here who says he's an employee. That's the podcast where it's like, I hope it speaks to him best, because that's who we're trying to talk to. Because businesses are owned by people, but remember, they're people. They're not just this big entity. And you know what, Dylan? I agree. I'm pretty sure whoever hires you, if they don't let you do your job, then they need to do it themselves. But they should still pay you just because you're great at what you do, no matter what it is what you do. He's actually the guy that came and helped us with the setting up the original podcast. He's a videographer, freaking awesome person. He's a voice actor. He's a cool dude. So I want to thank everybody in the chat. But yeah, that's coming out on Friday. So be on the lookout for that. I think by next week we should already have our first episode out. And I think that's like 10, 11 o'clock Pacific Standard.
Awesome. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you for what you do, brother. Definitely. So we're here at the end of the show, Art. So any last words for our business owners before we get out of here?
No, I would say thank you, everybody, for listening. And if you're not already a client, consider becoming a client. Check us out on our socials. Go to mitm.services. Do some more research about us. And if you're listening and you're trying to become a business owner, check out our class. Where that thing's coming probably within the next 2 weeks. It'll go live. That's going to be the class that I recommend everybody take before they become an official client of MITM. And that thing, and actually, since we're starting new, send us an email or a DM in our comment section and let me know if you want to take the class for free, because I need some people to take it for free anyways while I work out the bugs and kinks in it. So this is a perfect opportunity for anybody listening. If you want to take the class for free, you'd be saving yourself $197 a month.
I'm raising my hand.
You got it. You got the first key that's going out. But other than that, I want to thank everybody for listening, and we look forward to the next podcast.
All right, guys, we're signing off. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Man in the Middle. If you haven't yet, please consider liking and subscribing to the show. If you can't wait till next episode, follow us on Instagram at MITM Business Consulting and online at mitm.services. There, you can learn more about what we do, how we can help, and the custom services we offer around your personal needs. Until next time, if you'd like to choose the topic we discuss and receive additional services, consider joining our membership program at mitm.services.
Disclaimer. Man in the Middle expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, reliance on, or inability to use this podcast or the information presented in this podcast.
We look forward to you tuning in next time.